NSW. People who worked in bachelorette parties. What is the worst thing you saw? I was doing security at a club and a bachelorette party showed up all wearing t-shirts that said tribe or something on them. They looked like they hadn't been out in a long time to the club, if ever, and quickly all got plastered. One of them stumbled into me, trying to make it to the bathroom, and I offered to help her get there, since she could barely walk. She proceeded to let out an exuberant scream and flash her boobs, before promptly puking all over me and passing out. She fell backwards, breaking the first bathroom stall door in, and swinging it wide open, exposing a screaming girl pooping. It was like 11 PM. The night had just started. Exposing a screaming girl pooping. Those jalapeno poppers burn twice as bad coming out. I was a stripper for about 7 years. I've seen my fair share of bachelor parties, with quite a few that were absolute shitshows, but one sticks out for reasons that sort of differ from the others posts here. Scene: dive titty bar on a Wednesday night. It's kind of early for us, around 10ish. We have a decent number of customers, but it's still pretty calm. I am sitting at the bar with one of my regular customers, just doing the stripper thing. The door opens and this young guy walks in by himself. The doorman gets his id, takes his cover charge, and dude sits down at the bar not far from me. One of the dancers sits next to him to start her hustle, and the guy is not very talkative. He's clearly bummed about something. The dancer tries to use it as an opening for her hustle, turns on her charm, and asks him what's bothering him. He gestures to the empty space behind him. This is my bachelor party. Long story short, his friends were traveling in on Friday as scheduled for his bachelor party. However, his fiancée informed him that he wasn't having his bachelor party on Friday, and he could have it on Wednesday or not at all. His fiancée sounded very much like a controlling, abusive shitbag, but that was not our business. His friends were not able to come in early at last minute, so he went on his own, just to have a beer and go home. But he was clearly hurt by being robbed of this one-time experience. A customer who overheard ordered the kid a beer. The dancer who initially came to hustle him sat with him for a little while, not pushing for drinks or dances and generally just keeping him company. After the first beer was finished, another customer bought him one. Word of this poor guy's plight has spread by the dancers, and as the night went on, customers and a few dancers bought him drinks, lap dances, and so on. The kid had an absolute blast with his makeshift bachelor party, getting good and sloshed with plenty of stripper tea in his face, courtesy of the kindness of strangers. After a good while, someone poured him in a cab and sent him home. I hope he woke up the next day and sent his woman packing. This is weirdly kind of wholesome. Everyone felt bad for the dude and did their best to make his night a good one. I hope his future wife was kidding and his friends threw him one heck of a party, but if they didn't, your co-workers and customers sound like swell people. Guy ran a military obstacle course as the first stop on the bachelor party. Did the net climbing obstacle. When he dropped down on the other side, his ring had got caught in the net. He severed his finger. I work around voltage and wires up on poles. I wear a silicone ring so that doesn't happen. Not a bad thing necessarily. A friend of mine is a male stripper and legal to officiate weddings. More than once he's been called on to officiate a wedding where he met the bride the night before. As he tells it, the most awkward was when the officiate cancelled the night before. So the bride is at the bachelorette party stressed about getting a new officiate. He apparently negotiated the deal for that while naked, and they had an agreement that no one would ever tell the groom where she found him. There has to be some scenario where he officiates and then as the ceremony is completed, boom, music, bang, robes off. I just can't come up with one. Again, not a worker, but the bride-to-be, husband-to-be went out on his bachelor party with a small group, mostly to get drinks, play poker and get him a lap dance at the local strip joint. About an hour in, he calls me, you will not believe this, on stage. Flicking her clit ring is his last ex. She calls him out by name and says hi. Mind you, the party consisted of my dad, my younger brother, his dad, and a couple guy friends. They very quickly went to the upstairs room for poker and drinks with no more talk of lap dances. That town was too freaking small. My god, ex aside, I can't even imagine going to a strip club with family. In the long ago I was a male Stripper. The last gig I ever did was a bachelorette party where one of the girls bit my right nipple so hard she did some kind of nerve damage to it. I have almost no sensation in it to this day. Honestly, I'm lucky she didn't bite it off. I'm sorry, but I had to laugh. Mostly because I have this picture of some guy flexing his pecs up and down like the meme, but one goes up and down normally while the other one just sort of spazzes. I would say this had to have been someone's bachelor party and I just happened to witness, but it very well may be normal occurrence with this girl when she's working. I have to preface this with the type of strip club this is, because it's pretty unique as far as I know, at least in the States. It's a full nude, BYOB strip club where you're encouraged to fluff that butt when you're tipping a girl dancing. Things can get pretty weird before there's a problem, but this night takes the cake. I was there with a group of my friends celebrating a birthday. We'd been there a while, had most of the girls come over to our table to chat and ask if we wanted dances, the usual, when a girl I hadn't seen that night came out from the back room. We learned that nearly everything we can see on this girl is fake. Butt, hair, lips, probably some other stuff. She's next up on stage and gets right into her routine and she's getting it on the pole. Whereas most girls got their top off sometime in the first song, 2 song sets, and their bottoms off sometime in the second song. This girl had everything off a quarter of the way into song 1. Song 1 ends and she's already made good money. She walks to the back of the stage to put her clothes into a pile and gets back to work when the next song starts to play. She ends up at the front of the stage with this group of guys just throwing ones her way, when suddenly she's got a candle in her hand and she's teasing the people at the front of the stage. They start getting rowdy, which catches more people's attention, and then she inserts the candle. Now it's getting wild as more and more people gather. What's just happened? In her opposite hand it turns out she had a lighter and she logically takes the next step to light the aforementioned candle. The whole place is now silent as we're all in awe of the fact that this woman has a flame between her legs. Next thing she produces is a small aerosol can, from where I have no idea, and proceeds to turn her pee into a goddamn flamethrower, and furthermore causing an uproar from the crowd and a monsoon of dollar bills to rain down like I've never seen. My friend who wanted to go for his birthday had taken his glasses off to get a lap dance and missed the entire thing. Proceeds to turn her pee into a goddamn flamethrower. That is phenomenal. I have to go see this. Bride passing out at dinner face first into her pizza with white sauce and mushrooms. Bridesmaid woke her up and she lifts her face half covered in cream sauce with a couple mushrooms. She's cleaned up by her friends and I send a busboy to the table because it looks like they spilt water and it's on the floor. Seems the bride relieved herself in her chair, but she finished the rest of her pizza. That must have been a dang good pizza. Obligatory. Don't work at bachelor parties. But I'm an attorney in Detroit and split my office space with a couple of accountants. One of the accountants went on a weekend bachelor party to put in Bay, Ohio, an island in Lake Erie near Cedar Point. So on the Monday after the party he comes into my office and tells me the bachelor is looking for an attorney. I initially thought it was for some kind of drunken disorderly kind of charge. Oh no, it was so much more. Apparently their crew took a ferry over to the island and had rented a group of cabins. They arrived early on Friday and spent the day drinking. Friday night they go to a restaurant for dinner and end up going on a bar crawl afterwards, and everyone was extremely drunk. As sometimes happens, the groom got separated from the rest of the group and ended up partying with some people he didn't know. At closing time the group he was with couldn't figure out where he was staying, and while trying to get him back to the general area of his cabin, he took off and ran away from them. He apparently stumbled into another party and had even more to drink with this third group of people. He then staggered away from that party and got about halfway to his cabin and passed out on a trail. Around dawn some people found him and thought he was dead and called the island cops, who went out and investigated. The cops found he had a pulse but was otherwise non-responsive, so they did what one would expect. They called for a life flight to the mainland. Apparently taking a life flight and spending about 36 hours in the hospital, including 8 on a ventilator, costs about $50,000. And when you don't have health insurance, that's a lot. The legal question was whether or not the medical bill would be dischargeable in bankruptcy. Oh man. Good times at Put-in-Bay. Did several camping trips for Christmas and July parties there. Haven't been up there in years and I now live in Florida. All the more reasons I miss Ohio. Had a few strippers to the house for a buddy's party in Oceanside. We paid a hefty fare for special perks. They brought a variety of dildos, strap-ons, beads, etc. What turned out to be the most amusing prop they brought was the dildo. Long story short, the bachelor was dildoing one of the strippers in the butt. He sat in a chair. She bent over in front of him. He made the mistake of ripping it out of her too fast. She shot a nice mixture of crap and lube all over his lap. He then proceeded to puke on himself. The rest of us about died laughing while my buddy sat in sheer terror at the thought and sight of what just happened. Yup, that's enough Reddit for today. I organized the BP for my buddy. He is a cop, so there were lots of cops that got invited. His dad and my dad came for the first half of the night, which was a poker tournament in a large hotel suite. The dads leave when the poker is done and the girls arrive about an hour later. They tell us that there were 2 really drunk guys getting arrested in the lobby and 2 women with them that looked to be in trouble. Me, lawyer, and a few of the cops run down to see what is happening. Yep, the dads met some women in the elevator, picked them up, were trying to book another room and the manager wouldn't rent to them because they were all loaded. They started causing a fuss and the manager called the police. Nobody was arrested. Dads were loaded into a cab and sent home. TLDR, father of the groom and my dad tried to pick up randoms in the hotel lobby and got kicked out of the hotel. Was working as a bartender at a bachelorette party. The bride and one of the bridesmaids were dancing on top of the bar. Both slipped and I caught the bridesmaid before hitting the ground, but the bride hit her head and had a bad gash on her forehead and was bleeding pretty bad. Wrapped her head in a towel and rushed her to the hospital. The bride was fine, however had a bad scar on her head before the wedding. Drunken bridesmaid that I saved yelled at me that I should have saved her. Oddly enough, got her apology text a couple of days later though, as I gave them my number if I need to be contacted for anything. They tied the bachelor to a chair and had 2 girls start giving him a lap dance. After the girls' tops were off, they blindfolded him. The girls swapped out with 2 guys there and the guys kept dancing on him. After about a minute the girls pulled the blindfold. The bachelor squeezed one of the guy's nuts hard enough to drop him and shoulder through the other guy. Mind you, he is still tied, biceps, forearms, calves, and waist, to the chair. The chair broke and part of the leg pierced the male dancer's abdomen. Party kept going while a couple people took him to the air. Jesus Christ, was he Gerald of Rivia or some crap, my god. Another DJ here played a wedding where the bride and uber jealous cousin, or sister, or some such relation got into a scrap in the other end of the hall from the stage. I could see them facing off in the kitchen, yelling and pointing at each other. So the ruckus continues for maybe 2 minutes, and they are obviously getting angrier and louder, and of course, the music is up, and the dance floor is full. The mother of the bride gets one bridesmaid running to her and yelling that there is big trouble in the kitchen. I assume she blasts into the kitchen at Mach 1, just in time to see the cousin or sister or whomever she is drop the bride, jump on her, arms flailing, slapping, punching, screaming, and she actually starts the bride's dress on fire with a lighter, like lace and frilly crap all in flames, and going up fast. Then they roll out of my field of view, and guests and family are running. I see people grabbing jugs of ice water from the tables to douse the bride, mothers shielding their children's eyes, men arguing over how could this have started, yada, yada, yada. Now, the even more unreal part, they escorted the troublemaker away, where, I don't know, and the party continued with the bride in a newly blackened train, stinking of burned hair, and looking like she chased a fart through a knothole. This was all around midnight. They kept going and I shut down at about 1:30 or so. This was several years ago, and I know, not a bachelor party, but the DJ talk reminded me, and I thought Reddit would get a kick out of it. Chased a fart through a knothole. I wasn't at the bachelor party but got to hear about the aftermath from a mate that was there, so this is a friend of a friend story. Set the scene. Cute Chinese couple. Culture is important on this one. Christian no sex before marriage type. They had dated for a long while. They had the whole thing planned. Get married, be each other's first, try to get pregnant on their wedding night, etc etc. Come the bucks night they hire strippers and get drunk, and at some point they drunkenly decide to tape the groom to a chair. They also tape his balls to the chair and pass out. He wakes up in pain. His balls are huge black things. The circulation had been cut off to them. They rush him to the hospital but too late. No balls. They still got married but their dreams of having kids together the good old fashioned way is gone. He recovers well enough the wedding doesn't have to be rescheduled as a lot of family were flying in, but imagine it. They wanted the whole traditional get married have kids thing to keep the family line going. Pretty sure the dude was an only child. How do you even explain that to your family, including extended family that flew over? It was a clusterfuck. This is the worst story in this thread. I have decided not to have a bachelor party as I am too scared now. What the frick? A top client of mine got blasted and gave me a rundown of his bachelor party. It started by drinking at a Vegas day club, where he met a few girls and hooked up with one of them. After that and dinner with more drinks, his friends and him went to a strip club where they in total spent over $10k. This allowed them access to money, guns and bricks of fake money. Towards the end, they just started throwing bricks at girls, which alarmed security. Also, when he paid they forced him to sign the receipt the same was as his id. Shockingly, according to this guy, nothing happened at the strip club but lap dances. Feeling let down, they drove to a brothel over an hour away and banged a few prostitutes there. It's now 3 AM so they drove back to Vegas, found a 24-hour massage parlor where he attempted to get a happy ending before they kicked him out. Apparently by then his junk was defunct. A few hours later he was at his wedding. They lasted a little over a year and split. A top client of mine got blasted and gave me a rundown of his bachelor party. At least your friend knew what a rundown is. Obligatory not a worker, was guessed. No strippers or anything like that. I live in a remote farmers community. Everyone got drunk AF and the groom's dad decided that the first letter of the bride's name should be branded on the groom's butt, so that if they get divorced he will always remember and feel guilty about it. So they fetched branding irons, heated them up, pulled the groom's pants down, and Dennis branded a massive L on his left cheek, in the shape of an L, on his butt cheek. Obligatory not a party worker. My friend held her bachelorette party the night before her wedding, and while at the club they met up with a local minor league hockey team. The bride-to-be tried to get the whole bridal party to go back to the hotel with them, but only the bride went. She ended up sleeping with at least one of them and got married to her fiancé the next day. The kicker? She eventually told her now husband about it and now they're in an open relationship. She still hooks up with the hockey player from time to time. I'm going to steal my friend's story. His group of hometown friends are sci-fi nerds, and the groom was a STTNG fan. So his buddies dressed up like Klingons and kidnapped him. They took him to a warehouse and had him do some feats of bravery with those Klingon bow swords. Anyhow, my buddy wound up getting stabbed through the hand with a steak knife and had to go to the ER in full Klingon garb. So close to wholesome time but he just ended up with some holes. Group of girls came into the all-male strip club, plastered and screaming and shoving bills every which way. They left and came back in a few minutes later, bride hysterically crying yet on a rampage. The maid of honor had accidentally given the strippers the $700 they needed to pay for the limo, so they were stranded. Was a guest groomsman. We went to a lodge that was owned by a friend and proceeded to drink. The groom has the idea to take the 6-seater ATV for a spin around the property, so a couple of us go along because he knows the property well. The first lap goes well, so we go for another with 5 people total. A corner gets taken a bit too fast and a bit too sharp and tips over, breaking the best man's ankle. The groom got arrested and an owie and the best man had to have surgery and rode a scooter for the wedding. Found out later the place where the ATV landed was about a foot or so away from a 15-foot drop. I bet the best man was the real star of the wedding. You come in with a scooter and you're bound to be the talk of the party. Had a bucks night at my bar. Groom got way too wasted, refused to leave. Me and security guard walk him out with his arms behind his back in that painful security guard hold. I'm not security, so probably only one arm was painful. I was just holding on really. A shat decides to trip himself over on purpose in a futile attempt to stay. We fall with him, our entire weight pushing his arms in directions they should never go. Broke one arm, dislocated the other, broke his nose. Bride calls the next day furious, expectedly, screaming about lawsuits and such. We send her the footage, including his several attempts at groping various women. I don't think they went ahead with the wedding. I went to a comedy club on a date. There by coincidence, I saw a group of girls celebrating. After the first act, the host calls the girl and takes her to the middle of the stage. So she is all excited and all of a sudden a man dressed as Darth Vader comes out dancing. He was really skinny. When he takes his mask off, it's a local celebrity. He would appear in a late night talk show because he was particularly ugly. As he strips he goes all the way to his thighty whitey. Then he rips them off and reveals a white G-string. He then shakes his hips so much I got a glimpse of his balls. Can't imagine how she felt, but she was horrified. Worst girlfriends ever. Still, it was a fun date for me. I was a wine guide in Southern California. We had a bachelorette party of something like 13 21-year-olds. I got kicked out of the first wineries for being too loud. On my way to drop them off I got pulled over by the highway patrol because they were pressing their asses against the van window and flashing the officer. I came away without a ticket and a pretty funny exchange between the cop and also a young guy in his 20s gave me a thumbs up. When I got back to the office to drop the van off there were butt prints on the windows. My boss laughed. Frick, that was a long day, like herding cats. A guy I worked with decades ago made a legit ball and chain to lock onto the groom's ankle. This was back when the bachelor party was the right before the wedding. They all got blotto drunk and lost the key. The groom walked down the aisle with that ball and chain on his ankle because they couldn't find a solution in time. Hacksaw. The solution is called a hacksaw. Most towns have a hardware store. At a bachelor party in the stripper, while giving a lap dance to the groom, leaned over and bit my friend, who wasn't even paying attention. Now we say he's a were stripper, and every full moon he loses control and hits the red light district, looking for ones. The curse can be lifted with a silver bullet dildo straight through the butt. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.